Hey everyone, I'm your host Lanice and welcome to Soulfull. This is a space that'll help you unfold the tools within you to align with your highest self through shared experience. Because at the end of this journey, unique to oneself, we are all interconnected. We are one. This is definitely something that I am taking mental notes on today. I am going to learn a lot from today's conversation, and who I have with me today is a very dear friend of mine. Her name is Amanda Castanedo, and I feel as though she's been kind of like a mentor for me in many ways for a very long time. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I see you as a really good friend.
Oh yeah, on a soul level.
Yes, definitely.
Sure.
We've always been connected.
Absolutely.
Over the years through all the...
Yeah.
Even if we don't talk for months.
Right?
Or even years sometimes.
Yeah, honestly.
I mean, it's been over 10 years, right?
I can't even believe that.
Oh,
yeah.
But thank you so much for having me, and I'm excited for this conversation. I think this is something that everybody is thinking about and everybody's weighing, just like everything else, just like spirituality, sexuality, and spirituality really
naturally
go hand in hand, and are maybe even are intertwined. So I
believe
think
so.
Yeah, I think that this is something that everyone is. Not, I don't want to say struggling with, because it doesn't have to be a struggle, but everyone is checking in with themselves.
Maybe we all need a little bit of help in that
especially
department.
in this world, the way it is
in these present times. So
yeah, definitely.
Today we were talking about sex, and there's so many. Right?
The best subject.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many starting points here. So why don't we start with the more like fun and optimistic part of it, right? So like, what is sex even? Like, what is it? What is the female orgasm?
Oh my goodness. Well, for the female, I think especially it's so mental. And I think it's a sign that you're very comfortable, that you're feeling a physical connection, this chemistry. You're feeling, in a way, it's like magic. It's one of the most magical things in life, I think, outside of childbirth.
Absolutely.
And maybe laughing and intimacy, even just like mental intimacy. But that physical connection that you have with someone, you can't explain it, but there's so much there. Right. So that's how you know it's spiritual, because you can't see it necessarily, but you feel it.
Yeah. Because it is literally just like energy, right? It's just like built up energy that you kind of form
release.
And you develop, you build up, and then you release with another person. So
right, and we don't get to really see inside another person's mind. And we only get to feel the connection with that person, but at the end of the day, we all are having our own individual experience.
Yeah, there's
so
different translations.
Interesting. Yeah, like two people can do the same thing, but experience it completely different based on their perception.
Right.
So I think that's what makes it so interesting, and why there's so much around it, like unknown around it, because we can't read each other's minds. We can attempt to, but
and then we get caught up in our own head because we're like trying to figure out, did they like this, or was that okay, or
totally. Oh my, especially being a woman.
Yeah.
And that's partially like, I think, somewhat of a social pressure that we're there to just meet other people's needs and not not be very aware of our own. So I think we're coming into this new time in our society, and with our spiritual levels leveling up, I think, where we're becoming more self-aware, we're becoming more honest, especially as women, about what we want and what makes us happy and what we like and what we don't like.
Just even feeling like as though we have that freedom.
Right.
It's like before,
the
like you were saying
to
prior.
Be able to say it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that's true.
Prior is very like housewife energy, where it's like we're kind of submissive and, doing everything to kind of please It's
That's
like, what
true.
about our pleasure?
That's true. I don't think we've ever even had the ability to question that. So that's why it's new for a lot of women.
Mm-hmm.
And I think men, I don't necessarily think men don't have the same experience. I think they do. I think there's a lot of men that maybe have a hard time saying exactly what they want or being honest about what they want.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think there's something with women that we are expected to please, but we don't think that much about what makes us happy or what pleases us.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, things are flipping a little bit.
Interesting. And I feel like, it's kind of obvious saying this, but like one way to kind of dive into that and find out what you like personally would be masturbation. But like, what other ways are there? Because I feel like, I know some people off the top of my head where it's like they don't even want to do that with themselves. And that's their own thing. Like, again, everybody's so unique. So, like, how do you even begin to know?
You can't necessarily tell someone, like, oh, that's not the way.
Right.
I think that's one of the ways, but I do think being in a really healthy, trusting relationship, you also are able to be that open because you're not afraid of judgment and you feel comfortable and you feel like you can communicate with your partner. And so I think that's another way that you can explore that.
I like that.
But I do think your own personal, the knowledge of self is so important. Because how are you supposed to know what even your baseline is if you haven't experienced some things?
Right.
But what we experience is based on our own standards. So it's like this revolving door of like, is it our experiences or is it what we're allowing or what our standards are being set?
Okay.
Like, is it a random experience or are we in a way creating these experiences for ourselves based on or the level that we love ourselves?
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
Because I think based on a lot of friendships I have, especially with women, I don't even think a lot of people have taken the time to ask themselves these questions.
Yeah.
I think it's rare to really be honest about it.
And like have a sober mind and like trusting, that vulnerability with yourself and then another person, which goes back to the relationship aspect because when it comes to, a one night stand or hookup, like.
Which those are great too.
Right.
But
because it helps with exploration and such.
Self-exploration, but maybe not as much the intimacy, like depending obviously, but yeah, I think how in some ways sometimes we have to experience things in order to know if what we do like, what we don't like,
and what is helping you and what's not.
Yeah. And like what we've said, what's a trauma bond and what's actually a healthy, relationship with something. But that's a hard one too, because I think we can guilt trip ourselves a lot too. And I know from my own personal experience, sometimes I think I can be too hard on myself in the other way where I'm thinking, oh, is this a trauma bond or is this healthy? And then, and I've been coming to the place where everything doesn't have to be healthy, but we just need to be honest with ourselves about why we're doing it.
Okay.
But we don't have to be perfect, and we might do things for the wrong reason, and it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay to do things for the wrong reason, because that's normal.
Right, exactly, right. It's part of being human.
Totally.
But backtracking for a second, what is a trauma bond? What is a trauma bond?
Well, to me, it's when we're replaying an experience from childhood. They say that your subconscious mind is already in place by the age of 7. So from 0 to 7, you've already created the subconscious mind, which is the inner voice. Wow. So how we speak to ourselves for the rest of our life is being developed from the age of 0 to 7. So I think unknowingly we can repeat those relationships or relationship dynamics, and it doesn't always have to be gender roles. Like I think I've had a lot of relationships similar to my relationship with my mom. It doesn't have to be your dad, it doesn't have to be your brother, it can be gender fluid. you know?
Right. Maybe perhaps where you experience more trauma or have more memory of experiences and moments.
I think we all have this need to please other people, or a need to have some kind of approval. So when we don't get that, I think we can already be creating trauma bonds. And then
Because you're coming from a space of lack.
Yeah, definitely. And we're coming from a place of somewhere someone already hurt us. So already in that place, now when we express love, or when we make a connection, or when we choose a partner, we're unknowingly attracting something we're already familiar with, which is not always actually what we are really wanting deep down. It's just familiar.
So that feels comfortable because it's familiar. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily healthy because it's comfortable.
I thought, I've been thinking a lot about healthy. It's like, okay, well, what's healthy?
Right.
Especially with sexuality, we can't say, oh, that's healthy, that's not healthy, oh, that's healthy. But I think in being in a place where you don't have anxiety, you don't feel tense, you don't feel constant back and forth. I think that's a huge sign of it being a trauma bond, is there's a lot of ups and downs, and there's a lot of back and forth of one day you feel really into it, and then the next day you're not sure. We get used to that. But
Pattern.
Yeah, definitely. And that can be kind of a repeat of our childhood.
Wow.
One day you're having a great day with your family, or your mom, or your dad, or your siblings, or your uncle, or your grandma, and the next day something's a little bit chaotic.
Right.
So then we start thinking, oh, this is normal. This is how love is expressed.
Wow.
This way. So then we are attracted to people that express love in that similar way, or don't, or whatever, whatever the...
Interesting. So you're saying that based on the personality is where we kind of like open ourselves up sexually, because it kind of becomes that bond that you have.
I think that can be part of it. I think there's so many different sides.
Right.
But I do think a lot of our sexuality is based on experience, without us realizing it. It shapes us, our experiences.
Sexual experiences, or in general?
Probably both, because I think we can also have non-sexual experiences that do affect us sexually. The first time that we're rejected doesn't have to be sexually. It can be from the opposite sex, but it's not necessarily sex, but it's related.
Interesting. There's a connection there.
Right, totally. And I think a lot of it has to do with vulnerability. It's really vulnerable to be with somebody and to date them, or whatever, have sex with them, or just be with them, whatever it is, show all the sides to you.
Yeah.
It's very vulnerable.
Yeah. Because you don't want to experience that rejection. Like, nobody plans for that.
Definitely. So, and I think that's a really hard experience too. Our first time getting rejected, usually around in our teenage years. I remember my first time that I was rejected. I still remember I was 14, and he was my boyfriend for a little while, and he had called me. He went camping, and he called me and said, oh, I met someone else while I'm camping. Now I'm 14. But I remember the feeling. It was so intense.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember crying, and my mom came in my room, and she held me, and she was, telling me that it's going to be okay. And I remember thinking, too, oh, this is the end of the world. Like, this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Little did I know I was going to have a lot of those. A lot of those experiences. But
yeah,
those things stick with you. And I do think after that, I did have a little bit of a disconnection with relationships, a little bit less of a trust. I was a little more like, yeah, okay, well, whatever. If it works out, it does. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
right.
Because I started realizing that it was a lot more complicated than you would think.
Absolutely.
You don't just meet somebody and then it works out, and then you get married and have kids. And that's what happens in the movies.
It's definitely
but
Hollywood.
Yeah, and it can work that way. I'm not knocking that at all.
No, there's definitely high school sweethearts out there.
Yes,
I know
and then they have their own set of issues.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that.
Everybody's different,
Yeah.
like there's so many experiences. There's pros and cons to every lifestyle. That's why I don't judge because I know that a lot of people are just choosing what they want to do.
Right.
So I can't tell somebody, oh, you shouldn't want that.
Yeah.
That's not for me to...
Yeah, or like that's self-limiting, like just anything of the sort,
that's true,
because that works for them.
Or that's healthy, or that's not healthy.
Yeah.
But I think I think the person that should be really telling us if something's healthy or not is ourselves.
Listening
not
to that
another
inside.
person. Yeah, because really, who am I to tell you what's healthy?
Yeah.
But I can tell with myself, oh, Amanda, that might not be healthy. You know? I think that's, we really should listen to ourselves more. And I think with everything. I think that's part of being authentic, is being honest with yourself. Like, what do I want? Why do I want it? What do I like?
Yeah.
Why do I like it?
The why is really important.
It's pretty complicated too. It's not black and white.
Right, and I'm pretty sure that's the last thing you want to like dive into when you're horny, but it's like it's something to reflect on.
So wait, before we go into bed, have you healed your past childhood traumas?
Yeah. Why do you like to be slapped?
Really, no. Why do you have handcuffs in the drawer? There's some masochism going on here. Yeah.
Tell me about your childhood.
Seriously. But I really believe that there is no black and white with anything in life. And I do think that like everything can be true, but also not true at the same time. Like we shouldn't cling to anything too hard, because even if we are doing something out of something that could be dysfunctional, at the same time, it's our true self. It can be our true self as well. Like we have to love those parts of ourselves, even if we can recognize if we're doing something unhealthy.
Now, do you mean clinging to like a sexual partner, or like a sexual habit?
Any of it. It can be any of it. I think there's all kinds of things. There can be people in the lifestyle of, going out all the time, or even, let's say, in the sex industry, they might be clinging to one truth. And then there's people that are Christian and they go to church and they're clinging to a different truth. And or everybody's kind of, I think maybe sometimes we're playing a part instead of being authentic. Because most of the time, if we're authentic, we're not just one thing.
Right.
We're everything.
Right.
So if we're too much in one thing, it might be a sign that we're trying instead of being real.
Right. You're trying to fit into a certain label or identity that might not truly be your truth.
Because of labeling. And that's something that does bother me with our society, is that there's so much labeling. Even from a lot of people that don't want labels. Like, let's say the gay community, the LGBTQ community, or from most communities, there's going to be some kind of judgment of labeling yourself. Like, well, why do I have to say I'm gay or lesbian, or why do I have to say I'm bi, or why do I have to say I'm straight?
Right.
I could be straight for 20 years and then change my mind.
Right, absolutely. Yeah. And that should be okay.
Yeah, totally. I think it would create such a different reality for most people if we looked at it that way, with less judgment.
Because we kind of, like you said, so much of us at a young age, we grow up with these traumas from our childhood, but sometimes out of growth, maybe your sexual partner or your interest does change because that's what feels right for you.
Totally. And I think it's more realistic to expect yourself to change. And it's more realistic to like a lot of different things than it is to just expect ourselves to like one thing or one concept of ourselves. And a lot of times we have a lot of sides to ourselves.
Right.
I know I do. The more
Absolutely.
the more I become aware of myself, the more I see how many sides I have.
So true.
And then I'm like, wow.
Right. I question the whole, what is it, borderline personality? It's like...
wait, 23? No, I'm just kidding. No, but I think it's good to be a lot of things. Because we're not limiting ourselves and we're not labeling ourselves, which is way more realistic. We're fluid beings.
Right.
We're light beings.
We should try things.
Yeah. And maybe not with so much density, which would be the expectations and the judgment and the pressure that we're putting pressure on ourselves when we feel judged by others. It's because we're judging ourselves, or when we might be more kind of pressuring other people on accident even. It's usually because we're pressuring ourselves to be something. So I even try to remind myself that when I'm giving advice to people, because I realize I'm just basing it off my experience. It's not theirs.
Which
experience.
Can be projection.
Totally. So being careful of projection is important, especially with sex, especially talking about sex.
Yeah.
You don't want to project. So I'm like, you don't like getting, whatever tied up. Well, what is wrong with you? No, everybody has a different palette of their taste.
If you don't like that, it's okay.
Right. But don't tell me not to like it if I do.
Exactly.
It's both sides.
And that kind of, let's dive into the whole consent thing too. Like part of exploring and experiencing new things.
That's a really big one for women.
Right. It's so important to feel that safety, which goes back to the whole trust thing.
Yeah. Personally, from my experience, I do see how there is a connection between me putting myself in bad situations and making bad judgment calls, and also not setting boundaries, not following my intuition is usually how I get into those experiences where there's questions of consent.
Right.
Because as the woman, it is our job to set the tone. And I'm not saying there isn't situations where men are just, it could be either way. And there could even consent issues with men. I'm not saying that doesn't happen either. But I think that how we can make sure there's more consent is by having good boundaries as women. Not
knowing what's going to be
making
a good interaction and what's not.
Not putting yourself in those bad situations, you know? Not...
I think
following your intuition.
Yeah, I feel like alcohol personally can fog one's intuition and judgment, and that's when things get very complicated and messy. And even drugs, just any kind of substance that can alter the mind.
Definitely. I also think, like, from my own experience, and again, there's so many shades of experience. There's so many different types of experiences, so I can only go off mine,
exactly,
because I can't be anybody else, but from my experience, I do feel that most of the time that I've gotten myself in hairy situations, I knew that it was off, and I still did it, or I still went through with it, or still hung out with that person that I wasn't sure about, or I still... Was
that like a subconscious thing, or were you perfectly aware of it and just like kind of ignoring it because you weren't in a space of like self-development or growth yet?
Yeah, I think it has a lot to do with growth and maturity. I think when you're a really young woman, you don't quite know how to set standards. And a lot of times it starts again with childhood. Right. We're taught how to set boundaries and self-esteem and self-care. We're taught these things by our parents, whether they do it or not.
Exactly. Sometimes you don't get any of that.
Right. Yeah. Most of us, I think, didn't.
Yeah.
Because I think the previous generations didn't have the capability to work on those things. They were working on other things that were more intense.
Okay.
Not eating or war. I mean, your self-care regimen is going to be secondary when you're starving.
Yeah,
so I think
it's kind of based off of like how they were raised too. Again, like from even their parents, like going back to grandparents.
Generational, totally.
Because I do agree. I feel like we're in a time now where like this awareness is so large that we are like coming to dissect every parts of our lives to figure out how we can elevate our lives and like, avoid, depression, anxiety. Although I do believe it's a part of life. I think it's normal to experience that, but to really understand it, I think that we're kind of diving in a little bit deeper. Even like right now, we're just kind of diving in deeper to understand more.
It does go along with whatever you want to call it. There's been many different types, but they're saying in some way that we're raising consciousness on the planet. however you want to call it. So people call it the Great Awakening. There's there's so many
I feel
different
it.
things. Yeah,
I feel it.
The fifth dimension.
Absolutely.
And I believe the fifth dimension is when we've let go of fear and we've let go of dense energies, which is negativity, fear, all the things that make us feel dense and heavy.
Right.
That's it. It's not, for me personally, my view on it, it's not that much more complicated than that. We literally just take those negative thoughts and switch them around to positive, and we're already there in the fifth dimension.
Yeah, because if you think about it, if we all kind of level up in that way, like what kind of society are we going to be living in? I mean, it sounds more peaceful, more united, more comfortable, in a free way.
More self-aware and more self-responsible. That's a big thing, is that once we go into sexuality and consent and all these things, we're talking about self-responsibility. We're talking about being responsible for ourselves and how we present ourselves, and being aware of, because it is our job to take care of ourselves. It's no one else's job to say, no one can tell you what you like. No one can tell you who you're attracted to.
Sure, absolutely.
No one can tell you why you're attracted to that person.
And as an adult, you definitely can't say, it's my parents' fault. It's, whoever raised me, it's their fault.
There's plenty of people. But again, like that white or black thinking, it would say, oh, it's their fault or it isn't their fault. But it's an experience, negative or positive. It's not either. It just is.
Yeah.
Then we spin it however we want, So we can look at our whatever experiences we have in a negative view and feel sorry for ourselves and blame everybody else for it, and then keep doing it and never get out of that cycle. Right. Or we can let go of that blame and see it just for what it is without the density around it. And then let it go, because we don't blame that person anymore.
Right.
But again, it's a balance, because we still have standards, set them, are clear about them, and follow up on them. Nobody can do that for us.
Right, because time is always moving, so it's we got to keep up.
And the universe loves bringing back around those lessons that we made and just not quite gotten yet.
I know. Or it's like a test, and
I think, are you going to be consistent?
Up. Yeah. I feel that. I feel that.
I do too. I definitely do, because I think things that used to be able to be hidden for a long time are just not able to be hidden anymore. It's like, as soon as you know, it's right in your face and you're seeing signs already.
Definitely.
Right.
I think that whether people want to accept it or not, we kind of are stepping into a space of that awareness and
right. So either we're manifesting our dreams faster or we're manifesting our fears faster.
Yes, absolutely.
It doesn't, again, there's no positive or negative. It just is.
We don't get to go back past in time and stay in that moment where this collective energy isn't fast paced. We are all in it. It's a matter of which way you're going to go. You listen to yourself, or are you going to keep avoiding?
Right. Keep ignoring yourself.
That's literally what it is.
I've been there. I've been there many times.
Me too.
At the time, I didn't know that's what it was, though.
Oh, yeah.
At the time, I thought it was anxiety. Or I thought it was normal to be constantly up and down with someone, or up and down about a person and being with them, or whatever situation.
Right.
I was so used to that mindset.
Yeah.
That I didn't realize it actually doesn't have to be that way at all.
Exactly.
You can just make decisions and know they're the right decision and never think about it again.
Yeah. Life doesn't have to be that stressful.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't have to be stressful, and it doesn't have to be that wishy-washy.
Yeah.
We get to choose where we set the boundary, and then also where we want to bend them. That's our decision. But
Absolutely.
We already kind of see where that leads us.
Yeah.
When we bend them.
Yeah. So let's say for people who are in a relationship with each other and they want to kind of find that space where they feel truly authentic, as far as their sexuality, how do you even go about communicating that to your partner without, hurting their feelings or hurting your feelings, or without stepping, cross-stepping boundaries? How can we do that healthily to, explore ourselves and our sexuality?
I think personal responsibility is important, because first we need to figure ourselves out before we can put that on our partner, you know. So I think it's important for us to know what makes us tick and why and what we're attracted to, because then we can communicate that. But I think communication is really important. That's the only way.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've seen, and believe me, I don't know the answers. I haven't been in like a really, really long relationship or anything, but I can see how over the course of decades, if you're with the same person, you change and they change, and it's work to keep it changing together and
Flowing
keep
together.
it flowing together. I don't think you just meet and then it flows and then that's it. Maybe some people have that experience, but I do think it takes work. It takes effort. It takes honesty, communication. Say you like something when you first meet and then you don't like it anymore.
Yeah.
It's up to you to bring that up. Yeah. But it's hard. I can see how it's hard, but I think it's really worth it in the end.
Okay.
To be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, because unfortunately, again, talking about manifesting things fast, if we keep something hidden, or if we're not honest about a part of ourselves, I feel like the universe has a way of trying to put that right in front of our face until we are honest about it, or until we address it. Because most of the time we can't just sweep stuff under the rug anymore.
Yeah, it's not going to go away.
Yeah, or it might get worse.
Yeah. And you can
Like
make the wrong
more
choice.
complacent.
You can
get
make the wrong choices.
Yeah,
Make
I've
mistakes.
totally been there.
Oh yeah.
Definitely been there.
Oh yeah, me too.
I feel like I was divinely guided through a lot of things, but I also think that there were a lot of times that I was dealing with the consequences for not following my intuition and not being honest with myself. Being a little bit more, I guess you could say, it's a very spiritual way of saying it, but making excuses. You know? Because that's what it is. We make excuses for ourselves, and everybody, again, has to say a different thing. Some people are like trying to lose weight all the time. Some people are trying to meditate more, or some people are trying to change their diet. Some people are trying to exercise more. Some people are trying to clean their house more. Me. Some people are, everybody has a thing a goal that they're trying to meet. But I do think our own excuses that we make for things gets in the way of our true growth, because we're sweeping it under the rug instead of addressing it.
Interesting. So are you saying that sex is a personal goal for a lot of people that gets swept under the rug?
I think so. I think
like it's something that maybe we don't pay as much attention to, make it a priority.
I think it can be either way. It can go out of balance either way. Some people, that's their only priority.
Right.
Some people, it might be a trauma bond for them. That's the way that they receive love, and that's the way they receive reassurance of themselves. So they constantly seek that. Which I do think we see that a lot in the cheating culture. Instead of just being honest about it, people cheat, and that's kind of the easy way out. You're kind of getting both at that point.
Yeah. You
are still in a relationship. You don't have to address it. You don't have to bring anything up. But you're also being your authentic self somewhere else. So
that's an intimacy issue, is what you're saying.
I think so. I think so.
Okay.
Some people might be in an agreement in their relationship where it's open, and to me that's not cheating. But if you're lying...
I really, really think that for cheaters, polyamory is the option.
Right. I've said that before, too, in previous relationships where I'm like, hey, if you want multiple partners, you probably should have said that at the beginning. So I knew...
I feel like that's such a mature way to respond to that too, because anytime you find out someone's cheating, the other person's not okay, which is understandable. I mean, that is definitely betrayal, but I mean that response, maybe you should have said that from the beginning. That's that is so deep, I think, personally.
Yeah. Because it's real. It's not blaming.
Right.
You're not saying, oh, you're wrong. But it is more saying, well, you need to take personal responsibility for expressing what you want. or expressing your authentic needs.
Wow.
But a lot of times people are not self-aware enough to even say that. Or they might also have that constant wishy-washy thing going on inside of them.
Right.
Back and forth. And
right.
I think a lot of people deal with that wishy-washy feeling, that intensity, and then the lows, the highs and the lows, the highs and the lows. But I think healthy relationships have a lot of this evenness.
Right. Which can translate to people from trauma as boredom. Correct?
Yes. Totally.
If you're used to the roller coaster.
I've heard this before.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, why do you think so many women are in dramatic relationships and they choose that over a healthy one? It's clearly more comfortable for them.
Wow.
And
it goes
most
back
of
to
us-
the childhood.
Yes, totally. And most of us have experienced chaos in our childhood. I don't think very many people in the world could say they didn't grow up with some kind of aspect of their parents' relationship being chaotic.
Right.
So I don't think that it's necessarily like odd. I think most people have that experience, but
Right.
it manifests in so many different ways. One thing that, and now that I have children, I've really thought about this a lot. Like, what do I want to teach them that I didn't get taught? And one thing is definitely sexuality. Is I want to teach them about self-esteem and self-worth before they go out there into the world.
Before they start having those like hormones and feelings and all that.
Right. Because imagine if someone set us up a little bit more with that. Talking about self-care and self-worth.
Being open about
and
that, yeah.
standards. And not standards based on society standards. Standards based on our own authentic needs.
Absolutely.
So, like, for me, I started setting standards because I had so many times not had them that I was like, oh, okay, that's a standard now. But what if we could go into the world with some already in mind?
Yeah, some guidance.
Right. And, of course, we can't avoid experience,
Right. That's kind of part of evolution, too.
Totally,
is making those mistakes and, Learning, yeah.
Definitely.
But, yeah,
so for the next generation, since they're probably going to be even further along in spiritual development than we are, I always think about that, like, what would I do differently? And I do think that setting up a man or a woman or a boy or a girl to start building their self-confidence.
Yeah.
It's really important.
Totally
Confidence is really important with sex.
Yeah.
Or sometimes we end up making poor decisions based on our own self-worth issues. Or putting ourselves in places we don't need to be.
Accepting things that maybe shouldn't be acceptable.
Ignoring signs. Ignoring red flags. That's a big one because we're, in a way, making excuses or kind of not having those standards that we go by. Like now, if a man yells at me, or that's kind of a line for me, is that if somebody is too aggressive with me, that is a deal breaker for me.
Yeah.
That's a standard. So now I haven't put myself in those positions even because I already see the signs and I'm like, no, I don't date somebody like that. Yeah, exactly. I've learned my lesson to see those red flags.
Good.
But, and of course there's new levels always with it. But there are certain things now that I wouldn't deal with that I did before. And I look back and I'm like, wow, how did I make excuses for that?
Yeah, exactly.
And
it also, too, I want to also throw in reciprocity, about like reciprocating, the same level of respect throughout a relationship so that it doesn't, kind of get to that point. Like, because, again, like, it's not always just the man or it's not always just the woman. Like, it does take two. So, like, even on your worst day, that's when you really got to, like, try your hardest,
I think that's
when you don't want to just maintain that respect so that you don't ever cross, you don't ever lower that expectation with each other.
It is a boundary thing because we're not allowing ourselves to, stoop to their level. And then also we're not allowing that behavior around us either. But it's up to us. That's why it's so important, again, the self-awareness and the self, what was it I said earlier, like responsibility
yeah.
is to say what we need. No one is gonna say that for us.
Yeah.
No one is gonna be like,
it's so hard to have that conversation. Like, what do you just sit that person down? Like, we need to have a talk, you know? Like, that's so hard. Or is it like something when you're cuddling in like an intimate moment where you can be like, I really need to tell you something?
I mean, if I had all the answers, believe me, I would be like,
please tell me. Please.
But I think hypothetically, I would say that being open. Mm-hmm. It doesn't. There's not like a certain time, because it might look different for everybody. But
sure.
But just
transparency.
Being able to say, being able to say, like, I mean, I'm sorry, but I think women have faked orgasms for way too long.
I know. Can we stop that shit already?
And what we don't realize is we're hurting ourselves, because we're teaching. I saw something, I can't remember. It was like an article, and it said, every time you fake an orgasm with your partner, you're teaching them you like something you don't like.
That's not working.
Right. But now they think it's working.
Right.
Because what are they don't know that, I mean, how are they supposed to know that you aren't being authentic?
Exactly.
And that's not their job.
No, it's not.
It's not their job to choose.
I will say, though, that their job definitely is patience to learn. Yeah. Because I feel like as soon as a woman is honest, they're just like, oh, you know, and it's just like, okay, we need to slow down the pace.
Not the right fit for you.
Right. There you go.
Yeah.
Exactly.
That's the thing. And I mean, we're evolving as women, so we need evolved men.
Yeah, we do need evolved men.
And the same thing, evolved men need evolved women.
Absolutely.
And
let's reciprocate.
People attract so many different things, and we are attracted to so many different things and different reasons. It's so individual. It's so personal. And that's why sexuality is so personal. And again, I don't think there should be any judgment of others. Somebody can be married for 20 years and not be happy, and they have every right to say that.
Yeah, exactly. I love that you say that, because that can save a marriage.
That's true. Definitely.
Because
being honest.
Once you know, the whole cheating happens, or, you know, divorcing for, you know, fighting or whatever, it's basically because, you know, we're not sitting there to, one, understand the other person, and to communicate to be understood. Right. That's the ultimate challenge, whether you're married or not, in a relationship.
If you're going through life and you feel like no one understands you, no one listens, or you don't feel that your partner is listening, it's probably because you're not listening to yourself. We project so much onto others, and we blame so much, but how can we blame on somebody else, like expressing ourselves? We can't expect that from someone else to do that for us. We have to express ourselves.
Absolutely.
And the way they respond to it, that's them. But it's up to us at first to express that. We can't be upset if no one listens to me, no one listens to me. There might be something there.
Right. So
to look at.
So you're saying that, like, right off the bat, beginning of, you know, a relationship, when you're first dating, is when it's important to have that communication. Definitely. I mean, not just on, you know, where you want to go eat, but like in the bedroom, like sexually, like what you like, what the other person likes.
The fun, exciting first 6 months, it always fades, and then you're just two people in a partnership. If that's what you choose to do, if you choose to be committed, and you choose to keep going what you have, and you want to be in a relationship, the next level of that is going to be to find deeper connection with each other. And if it's inauthentic, it already throws it off. But I mean, yeah, it's hard. I think, especially as women, especially as spiritual, attractive women, it can be hard. We're empathetic, we're sympathetic,
we're healers.
We
just want to fix.
We might have past life trauma. It doesn't even have to be intergenerational or even personally with your childhood. It can be even bigger than that. It could be past life, I think, personally.
Yeah, I believe in past life energy, absolutely.
Definitely. And I think, you know, soul contracts and those things, and sometimes we might be repeating the same soul contracts over and over and over and over until we decide to end those. We decide. Nobody else is coming along being like, oh, this is over now, click. Yeah. No, we choose to end those cycles. Mm-hmm. So I think when sometimes we'll feel so primally attracted to someone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because physically it's very different than mentally.
Right.
Like right off the bat, you'll see someone, you're like, they're fucking hot, and you're grocery shopping.
Right, but then sometimes even like their personality, it's not, you're not attracted to it, but even if they're, physically. But then let's say you meet someone and you're physically and mentally attracted to them. Mm-hmm. Then the next thing would be to see who they are, because at the end of the day, that's what we're doing every time we start dating someone. Is we're becoming more intimate with them to see if they're a good fit for us. That's really what it is. But then all of our other dysfunction comes in and messes stuff up. But really, when you take all that away, it's just two people connecting with each other, expressing themselves to each other in a certain way, and we all have our baggage.
Absolutely.
So, self-awareness, I think, is key in any mature, evolving, spiritual relationship. If we want it to be positive and not chaotic and not based on negative emotions.
Right.
Self-awareness it has to be there on both sides. Yeah. Men and women need it, because what are we even going to base it off of if we don't have that?
Wow. I have to be honest and say, too, that I think that we are in a time where, like, everybody's kind of rushing. I just feel, and that's, some people meet in the first week and they know that they're soulmates, and they literally are. They live their life out, and that's great. Again, it's...
That might be their lesson, or that might be their, their timeline that they chose.
Timeline thing, exactly.
Or,
but like with Twitter,
or it can be settling. It can be either.
It can be what?
Those. It can be settling too. Sometimes.
Yeah, because I guess you really don't know what's happening behind the door.
Right.
But like what I'm getting at is the whole God, I'm literally spacing out. That's horrible. Tinder, the Tinder and like the Bumble and the I think most people are using Hinge now. But
it's been a while since I've been.
I know. I'm just. I'm not on that kind of stuff, but it's definitely prevalent, and I feel like
it's a way of meeting other people, and it's also broadened the I don't want to say collection, but it's broadened the choices that you have. But I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily. I think it's good to have a lot of options. But again, back to self-awareness. Why are you on there?
Yeah.
Why are you dating? Why are you going on that date?
Right.
Why are you, everybody has a different reason. One person might just be on there because they really want to meet somebody and they're single and they really truly do want to meet someone. But there also might be people on there that are not single and they're on there for constant attention. Mm-hmm. Or they're on there to keep themselves busy away from their trauma, away from dealing with their trauma.
Distraction.
Or to get constant approval because they don't love themselves. So
validation.
Oh, wow. Definitely. Think about any kind of social media, which I do consider dating apps like social media. It's a way of getting some kind of reaction of your pictures there, you're presenting yourself, and then people react, and you're getting something out of that.
Yeah.
So I think that it is a way to get validation. But that's not it's not a bad or good thing. It's why are you using it?
Right.
Why are you getting validation?
Huh.
Do you need it, or is it just,
Yeah, I think there's a lot of maybe it's just miscommunication happening in that community where someone is trying to find somebody, and I don't know if it's a lack of patience or, if people really aren't being honest and, wasting other people's time, or if everybody is constantly looking for Mr. or Mrs. Perfect, and it's is that real?
I think there's an aspect of it. It's kind of like consumerism. It's the same thing. Everybody's constantly seeking the new thing, the new phone, the new iPhone, the new TV, the new house, the new car. Again, that's not always bad. It's good to have goals.
Okay.
But I think it's a why thing.
Yeah.
Are you doing this because you need something, you're filling a void? Because that's probably a good sign that it's not coming from a pure place in your heart.
Right.
You're looking for something to validate you instead of it just being natural and flowing. Or is it truly just because you want to meet someone? You never know, but I do think it's similar to consumerism, where it's easier to just go buy a new TV than to work on the one you already have. Or it's easy to just hop back on dating apps.
Wow.
When you're feeling
lonely.
Lonely or insecure about your situation that you're in, or whatever the thing is. The why is so important, and I think most, probably not in this community listening to this podcast, but the why is a lot of times no one's asking those questions of why, even down to simple things of why are you buying that? Why are you calling that person? Why are you picking up that remote? Why are you picking up that cookie? Why are you, just that self-awareness?
Yeah.
It's so it makes you look at it different, because there's no negative or positive.
Well, yeah.
It's just being honest about why we do things.
It sounds very core, this self-awareness thing. Like, that's literally just the answer to
it is
all of this. Relationships, sex,
money, everything. Happiness, yeah. Like, challenges, how we react. How we react is such a really good indicator of why we're doing things.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just in autopilot. We don't even know why we're reacting, or we don't even know what we're reacting to. We don't even know we're reacting. But if you slow down and you pay attention to yourself, we're usually paying attention to everybody else. And we have an opinion about everybody else and how they're living their life. And we're watching TV, and we're going, here, and we're going there. We're drinking, whatever. It's a way to fill the time. But then at the end of the day, with all this time spent, what did we get out of it?
Yeah.
Or are we just filling the void? Or is it really an authentic need? And I think that with anything.
Yeah, maybe a lot of people don't even know what exactly they need.
Yeah, and I think one of the biggest lessons that I don't think a lot of religions teach, and that's why I really like more of an open spirituality, is that you only know what you need.
Right.
No book can tell you. No podcast can tell you.
Right.
No person. Your mom can't tell you. Your auntie can't tell you. Your best friend can't tell you. They can give you advice, but it's going to be based on their life.
Yeah.
So it's still not going to be fully... And I've come to that point in my life where I'm like, I pick up the phone and I go, why am I calling this person? Why? What do I need to say?
Yeah.
What do I need to get from this? And then I can be clear on it. I just need to express myself to someone, or I want to hear this person's view on it so that I can get a little bit of a clear view. But if you're just dialing and talking and there's not really a lot of self-awareness happening, then what are you really, are you growing?
Noise.
Or is it just, are you just basically a zombie?
Wow.
There's
a lot of zombies out there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think that's what the Matrix, when people compare the Matrix to how we're living, I think fear and expectations and constant moving and constant validation is the Matrix.
Yeah.
And when you wake up, it's because you're becoming aware of why. Why do I need those things?
Yeah.
Why do I need sex? Why do I need love? Why do I need whatever it is that we feel we need? What is it? Is it our authentic self, or is it autopilot?
Wow.
So I think it takes work to slow down and be aware every second of every day, because most of the time we're gonna go into autopilot a little bit, but the more we can pull ourselves out and be like, oh wait, I'm in an autopilot right now. I'm gonna try to recenter myself, get back into my body, and figure out, why am I doing this? instead of just being out of my body and my mind is somewhere else. So I think with sex that could really help, especially with long-term partnerships, long-term relationships, and communicating, is being in your body. Both, imagine two people in their body communicating with each other in an authentic way, the type of connection you can have.
That's magic.
That's the true magic.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel
agree.
like you can physically feel more of that release, more energy sparking
Definitely.
from it, an experience together, if you're both open about
And
everything.
you're giving space to the other person to be authentic. The more authentic you are, the more space you can give to the other person, then they can express themselves authentically, and you both have that trust.
Yeah.
And there's no judgment.
Yeah.
Because you're both just wanting to be authentic. You're not. There's no expectation of like, oh, you should this or you should. It's
expectation is big because it's like we all are different and have different experiences.
Right. Because it's like based on experience.
Right. So let's say somebody is coming from a space where they don't have a lot of experience. Even communicating that can really help.
Yes. Or somebody might have a lot of experience in one thing, and not another, or vice versa, or and everyone's just coming to each other, just them, and what they are, and no fantasizing it or under fantasizing it. It's just who they are. But we as women, or as ourselves, get to decide who we want to be in our space.
Yeah.
And if we see it as sacred, and we see it as I guess sacred is the best way to say it. If we see it as something that is special, then we might more be likely to attract someone that also see it as sacred and respect it in that way.
I like that.
But if we set the tone, for life in general. We set the tone for expectations of life and what we think we can get out of life. And two people can start working at a restaurant, and they're both hostesses, and one of them just doesn't see more for themselves, and the other one does. So one of them stays a hostess for 10 years, and the other one moves up and keeps learning and they both started in the same place.
Yeah.
So it's really just about our own expectations, our own standards that we choose to set. It's not outside of us. I think there's a lot of that, especially in I think with the social aspects we have right now with work and money. There's so much of this limited belief system and lack around money and work.
Right.
But imagine if everyone healed that self-esteem part of themselves, we would all be expecting the most from life.
Absolutely. And I feel like even just like money-wise, like the flow would be so much more evenly distributed. I mean, I don't want to get into politics, but I'm just saying, like, I really do believe that everybody can be successful.
The concept that there's not enough for everyone is totally a man-made concept to get away with how they've created the hierarchy.
It's literally, it's a mindset that is literally fueling. It's just fueling capitalism.
The crazy part, though, with the internet and YouTube and all these things is that it's almost like the old way is cracking, because people are all of a sudden making money on they're being creative and being authentic, and they're making money, and they're not clocking in at Walmart 50 hours a week, and they're not going to the warehouse working 50 hours a week. I'm not saying that's wrong, but there is more to life than just slaving away for the minimum.
Absolutely.
But the thing is it's not about, I don't personally think it's about the system changing. It's about us changing.
Yeah.
The way we change the world is we change ourselves. We cannot change anything else.
That's where it starts, because we are literally the majority. We are all human. We are all capable.
But it's been the opposite, where especially with media and the way that they spin a lot of things right now, it's about changing. We need to change. We need to stand up against something. We need to change the system, which I don't disagree with. I do, of course, this old system is dying. But I do think that our own personal growth and our emotional maturity and our self-awareness and our all those things are how we change the world. If we heal ourselves, we heal the world. Going and being politically motivated, I don't think that's going to change very much. I actually think that there's a reason why that's out there is to distract from changing.
Thank you.
I think.
Yeah, I agree
if
with
everybody's fighting, they're definitely not working on themselves.
Yeah, and it's like, let's not look at the
And
things
can
that
we really
make us
blame
different.
everything on one thing?
Yeah.
No. We have to be better as a people in order for us to be better in the future. It's not about who you vote for or what viewpoint you have or whatever.
It's like, okay,
specific.
let's not look at the differences. Let's go down to the core.
Which is, it's most people are the same. Yeah. So most people have the same core values.
Right.
But all the noise is distracting from that. So if we focus on the self, if we stop being a victim and we stop blaming other people for our problems, already that's the new level of self-awareness that we have. And then we can actually heal ourselves. But if we think the world is rigged against us and the system is rigged against us and everything is just effed up anyway, so why even try? How is that going to help our future generations? Yeah. And how is that going to help us heal ourselves? It doesn't. That mindset is lack. It's all lack.
So, okay. So let's talk about that lack mindset and that growth mindset sexually. What happens when you have two separate mindsets where one is on a higher frequency, one's at a lower frequency? Like,
I think it's kind of what you were saying, like what you were saying about long relationships.
Yeah.
You have to work to keep yourselves on the same level. So somebody might level up, but then the other person needs to also kind of level up with them.
Right.
Be willing to. So if one person has a lack and one person doesn't, one of them is going to grow out of each other. Unless that person with lack mindset chooses to let that go a little bit and start to try to see things more and then, like, level up with them. It's a choice.
Yeah, but it's a choice and a risk in some perspectives for those growth mindsets, because it's literally a matter of like reaching your hand out and it's like, which way are you going to go? Like, because we're all trying to elevate, I want everybody to be
right
on a high frequency, on a high level. And I think in able to do that, we have to have some kind of connection. We can't, I don't like superiority where it's like, you're not where I'm at, so like I'm not going to even talk to you.
There's no such thing as a spiritual hierarchy.
Not at all. Not at all.
Thing. It's just everybody is doing something different. So they might be really good at one thing and not good at another thing that you're really good at, and then you're not good at something they're really good at, and then
so it's a give and take.
Right. I don't believe really in anybody being higher level than maybe personally I believe that I do love the story of Jesus, and I do see him as like an ascended master.
Yeah.
So I think there were people that have come and been born into the world that had a higher consciousness and they're ascended masters, but even they never said they were better.
No.
They never said that they were further along. So,
and even their stories come from not a place of hierarchy. It comes from a place of, where was Jesus born?
Like
in a
purity.
little...
Yeah, he was born in a barn.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
But and look at his disciples and who they were. That's a huge one for me. That's always stuck with me, is that they weren't pastors and saints.
And
they were they were regular people that just wanted to learn more. They wanted more from life.
I think that they were more open than everybody around them in the time.
Definitely.
That's why they believed in him.
But what their job was, or who they were, their social status, or their class status, it didn't matter.
No, not at all.
At all.
And so let's bring that back into the present time of how it's so important not to even place those judgments.
Definitely. Which I think has been lost.
Yeah.
But it's by design. Because if we keep judgment going, that keeps people away from their authentic self. When you think about it, all the judgments in the world keep people from being their authentic self.
And then we form these like this segregation Or it's like, I have to stay
Definitely.
with this group because I'm trying to get here. And it's like,
Well, think about it. They used to forcefully segregate. Now they're just allowing. Now we just do it ourselves
yeah,
based on mental manipulation.
absolutely.
But either way, it's still separating yourself. So I think what the Christ consciousness, or the whatever you want to call it, that the message, the energy around the message is that it's about being humble, accepting each other, loving each other anyways, and in a way where you're responsible for you, even though in Jesus' story he gave himself for our sins. I don't know. That could have been more of a twist on it too, to add more guilt.
Right. I
You know what I
think
mean?
about Easter all the time.
Right.
Think about
There's
that story all the time.
So many things. So many.
Yeah.
So for me, I've noticed that if, again, it's something I've read that really resonated with me was, if it's teaching fear, it's not of God or whatever you want to call it, God or higher consciousness or love or whatever. You know already it's not. It's fear. If it's not clear, positive thought, it's not of the higher consciousness.
Right.
That's how you know the difference. It's not about you hearing from us in a certain voice or something.
Yeah.
It's more like those inner thoughts. If it's negative and if it's critical and if it's, then you know that's not your higher self. Your higher self is never gonna be negative.
No.
Of another person either.
Yeah, exactly.
It's always gonna be loving and accepting and light.
Interesting.
And that's how. And the same thing with sexuality. That's how we know.
Yeah.
We're gonna know ourselves by knowing what makes us feel those feelings. What makes us feel intense attraction and love and primal attraction.
Yeah.
And it's not, and all those critical voices in our head, that's other people's judgments. That's other people's expectations in our head.
And it's important not to let that steer our own
Yes.
choice making.
But that's hard, especially with how our society is so, I don't know what, we are brainwashed by the society from day one. So imagine if we're not taught any of these things when we're children.
Yeah.
What would we think? We would be different. So that a social programming is so deep in us, and in a way we have to kind of like in the Matrix, unplug all those programs.
Yeah, we gotta kind of break it all up. There's a saying too, actually. God, I forgot who said it, but it says there's two kinds of people in this world: the takers and the givers. Okay, so the takers will always eat better, but the givers will always sleep better. So it's like it comes down to like who
are you?
Who are you, and what are you attracting?
And your intentions too.
The intention.
Because you might view yourself as a giver, but you may actually in reality be a taker.
Yeah.
And because you may be giving from a place of lack, and giving from a place of the self-love might not be there, so you're giving to receive love back
With an expectation.
expecting something back, which is not real giving.
Right.
And I think that same exact thing with sex. It's an open space for us, and we shouldn't be really doing it. We shouldn't be giving in order to get something back. We should be, in a way, both authentically giving just to give, just because we want to, just because we like it.
Because you like that person enough.
Right.
That you want to make them feel good.
Right. Just to make them feel good, and they just want to make you feel good. Imagine, that's like, there's no strings in that.
Yeah, and if you think about it, like, I mean, yeah, I know, like, this whole reproductive, like, system and all that, it's developed to, reproduce. But, I mean, like, there's pleasure in that, and, like, there's kind of a reason, right? There's a reason why there's pleasure there.
Again, that's very primal.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things with politics and stuff, but at the end of the day, if we don't reproduce, we cease to exist as a race or as a being on the planet. So in the long term,
how boring is it if we were like created in a way where it's like we just plug in, let me stick your USB in, and then we'll just have a baby. Like,
I know, and it might feel like that for some people,
wow.
if we're that disconnected, know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's a balance. It's like being authentic, being honest, and also expecting yourself to be human, knowing that like those feelings you have and those wants and those desires, they're normal, they're healthy, you deserve them.
Right.
You deserve to have desires.
Yeah. And creative desires too, It's like just because, I'm speaking in terms, I know I hear a lot of the times where it's like men will like, they'll want to, fantasize about a girl with different colored hair or something, it's like, that's okay.
And you're leading into a really good one. I know we've talking about porn and how that affects.
Yeah. Take it away.
we brought this up before.
Yeah.
But, it goes along with what I was saying about consumerism. I feel like porn is kind of like a replacement. Just like clothes and cars and money, and it can be, or anything really, drugs, food, anything. It can be a replacement for true self-love and true balance in your life. So in a way, it's like consuming. You're just consuming.
A distraction almost, kind of like a void.
I think so. I mean, I don't want to say that it's wrong, because it's not wrong or right necessarily, but I do think it is mentally affecting people sexually.
Okay.
Because
like physically, when you're having that actual sexual interaction, not when you're just like yourself on the computer.
Yeah, well, already the fact that we have that option to have a sexual experience alone.
Yeah.
Think about before there were screens in every home.
Wow.
Did you just have to use your mind, I guess? But it does change things. And then also something that's always intrigued me is whatever images you are watching, and this is, again, very primal level. This isn't as spiritual, but it's more physical. Whatever you're watching, and then you have an orgasm, your brain is connecting that image to pleasure.
Oh my gosh, you're so right.
So, is that you really liking it, or have you been, in a way, training your brain?
Conditioning.
Right, conditioning yourself. And then I read a specific book on porn and how it's affecting men specifically. And it's one of the top issues in relationships and in divorces and all those things. So I think what ends up happening is our brain doesn't know the difference between real and a screen. So, and I think as humans, like, I don't know if you've noticed this, but usually when you're really into someone, it's harder for you to be really into someone else. We're always going to kind of be focused on
your
one.
Your mind is like fixated on that person.
And it's funny, and then you move on to someone else, and then all of a sudden you don't care that much about the other one that you before were so fixated on.
Right.
So I think in the way porn can be that way too, where now your mind thinks that's your source of pleasure. So how can you also see your partner that way when you're focused so much on that?
Right. And let's be honest, I mean, like, porn is very like they have all the females in the porn industry have amazing bodies.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and they have everything too.
Yeah.
Every type of thing, and it's really easy to find. You literally click a few letters and all of a sudden you're there. Instead of having to find someone and then go on a date with them and then take them home and then
hope that they like what you like.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
There's a lot of kinks in porn.
Yeah. So I think it can be, in a way, like a pre-digested version of real intimacy. In a way, it's like consumer sex or consumer sexuality.
So do you think that can kind of block some people, mostly men, since that you were speaking in terms of like, it being a very prevalent issue with men? Would you say that is possibly forming like a block with them having like a real connection with women?
I want to say yes, but in a very open way, because I don't think one thing is just going to apply to everybody.
It's not going to be for everybody.
But I do think logically it makes sense that our brain doesn't know the difference. And you can start in a way being more attracted to somebody on a screen than a real person. Because a real person, they're not going to always look good. They're not going to, they roll out of bed with messy hair. They're not going to look like screen ready like it is with every...
have a full face of makeup.
Right,
hair blown out.
We have our weaknesses and our strengths and our low points and our high points. And we're just human. So then, on top of it, now there's this unrealistic expectation. And so let's say you are turned off by your partner. Now all of a sudden, the computer's never going to turn you off. Well, most of the time. But, and then your brain is literally confused on what's real on a chemical level.
Wow.
Because now you've released oxytocin and serotonin and all those things that you release when you have an orgasm, watching something else on a screen.
Right. And let's be honest here. I feel like possibly a lot of people just skip straight to the climax stuff anyway. That makes them have you
been watching that? How would you know that about us?
Tab.
Okay, 4 minutes and 44 now. Yeah. That's how quick.
That's dangerous.
It reminds me of how in 50 years ago, the scenes would change every 5 to 10 seconds, 15 seconds in a movie. Now they change every 2 seconds.
So fast,
The pace, our attention span is getting shorter. Which again, that is the opposite of intimacy.
So
it's
true.
It's not intimate.
Thank you for that.
And I think even children, I've noticed children, because think about our children, they're growing up with an iPad. They're growing up with the TV in front of their face all day. So their attention span now is even on this other level.
Dude, my kids be looking on YouTube all the time. Mom, this one. And I'm like, back in my day, we had one channel and you had to wait until 4 o'clock to watch that show.
We had to download the DSL or whatever. We had to wait for the internet to work. We couldn't be on the phone while the internet was on. I know.
We had to wait for that movie to come out on VHS.
They didn't even grow up with very much access to it. So it's changing fast.
Very fast pace for our brains.
And guess what that kind of results in is not being present and not being self-aware.
Oh my gosh, that's so true.
I think it is, again, by design. A lot of things are in place for us to avoid the stillness. Avoid being honest, with ourselves, kind of just be on that go mentality and not slow down and think, do I want this? Or why am I doing this? Wow. Imagine if every time we even picked up a fork to eat, we thought, why? Why do I want this right now? Am I hungry? Is my body saying I'm hungry? Or am I bored? Or am I sad? Or am I whatever? Or why am I hitting up my ex? Or whatever it is. Why am I on Hinge?
Yeah.
It's... Imagine how many men in the world could really benefit from that way of thinking.
Yeah, I agree.
Maybe at least they could be more honest about why.
And in turn, how will that benefit so many women out there?
Right. It's a constant. Yeah. Well, think about it. I've had this conversation before. Who raised all these broken men? The wounded masculine and the wounded feminine, they go hand in hand. One is not. You can't really have one without the other. It's a cycle.
You're so right.
Just like anything. Just like what we're saying, everything is there's 50-50 of everything. There's two sides to every story.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's a lot of wounded masculine in our society right now, but I do think the root of that can be wounded feminine. And then the root of those wounded feminine is wounded masculine. It's a cycle. And that's intergenerational.
Wow.
But it's true. It's if we're not self-aware, we will get passed on our intergenerational trauma, and we will live it out. We will copy the same traumas until we choose to be self-aware. And it can manifest, but I do feel that sex is one of the most common places for it to manifest.
Keep shining, dude. You're an amazing mom.
Oh, thanks.
You're a great mother, great partner, great friend.
Thank you. I'm striving for that.
I am very proud of your growth.
Thanks.
I've known you for a long time, so oh my god, yeah, I'm so proud of you, and I look up to you, really, I do. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hope you guys enjoyed this as much as I did. Thank you for being with me today. If you felt this in your heart and your soul and your center, then please subscribe for more soulful messages. And most importantly, be somebody's angel today and share this episode. Until next time, Angelians, peace and love.